For those of you watching on YouTube, this video contains a lot of close detail, so please make sure you're watching in the maximum possible resolution and at full screen. Hello, today we're going to show you a live drive-by attack launched from a legitimate UK website. So the setup I have here in the lab is a virtual machine with a browser in it, and this browser is pointing to a proxy which is our M86 Secure Web Gateway. So I'll just show you here. Now, first of all, I'm going to go and visit a website, a popular UK banking site, santander.co.uk. And if I go to the login page, you'll see the standard login page is just asking us for a user identity, and everything looks normal. So what I'll do is take a quick screenshot of that page and just save that off to one side, so that we can look at it later. Now what I'm going to do is go to a site that we know to be infected at the moment, and it's called houseontherock.org.uk. It's actually part of the London Lighthouse project that you may have heard of, and we can see there as the page loads that the site appears to load fairly normally, and everything looks as it should. Now if we bring in the back-end component of Secure Web Gateway, and as I log in, you'll see it lands on the logs page. Now we can see one log entry here for an item of code that has been blocked related to the page we've just viewed. And if I drill into the details on the log entry, and we look at the response side of the traffic, we can see it's been blocked by the malware entrapment engine. And if we drill further into the detail, we can see it's been blocked because of two specific client-side vulnerabilities. Now in this case, if I just refresh the logs, we can see there is one and only one log entry. So this particular attack was stopped in its tracks at the first stage. Now what I'm going to do now is switch the security policy on Secure Web Gateway into X-ray mode, so that it is effectively still looking at what's happening, but isn't going to take any enforcement action. And that should now allow our workstation to become infected. So let's just put that back end out of the way for a second, and we'll go back to our virtual machine and our website. Now before we refresh the page to relaunch the attack, I'm just going to open a couple of things on the workstation that might help us see what's going on. So firstly, I'm going to go to the user temp folder, which is a very vulnerable area of Windows, and where files often get dropped during an infection process. And I'll also open a copy of Process Monitor, which will show us if there are any unusual processes running in the background. So now I'm going to refresh the House on the Rock site and just minimize that so we can see what else is going on the workstation. And immediately we can see a pop-up box because the Java engine has been invoked. On the processes in the background, you can see Adobe Reader being activated there. And on the file window, we can see some files being dropped into that user temp folder as well. Now what I'm going to do first of all is take a copy of this dropped executable file from the temp folder, just in case it disappears, because often these kind of attacks will clean up after themselves, and any files that are seen will be transient. Okay, if I scroll down the processes, here we can see the dropped files actually being executed as part of the attack. And there's another one. Now, the first thing I'm going to do now is go back to my web browser, and I'm going to submit the dropped file to virustotal.com. Now, if you're not aware of it, VirusTotal is a website that allows you to compare any item of code against about 40 different antivirus engines, including all the major ones. So let's just submit that dropped file to VirusTotal and see what we get. Okay, and as the results come in, we should be able to see that most, if not all, of the major antivirus engines have missed that particular piece of code, and they would include Kaspersky, McAfee, Sophos, Symantec, Trend Micro. In fact, only one, this time Komodo, appears to have found anything wrong with that particular file, which could lead us to ask if there really is anything malicious about that file. So what we'll do next is go and revisit our Santander banking site. Before we do that, let's just clear the browser cache to make sure there's nothing hanging around. And back to Santander. And if I click on the login page again, you can see that some things have changed. We've got additional fields there compared to what we had last time. In fact, if I bring in the screenshot that we took earlier, you can see just one field of information from the uninfected machine has been replaced by half a dozen fields of information asking for various personal details that will allow you to compromise that bank account. Now, this is a fairly typical man-in-the-browser attack, and the features of this kind of attack are that the URL used for the attack is genuine. There are no fake sites being used here. Also, the padlock and the certificate chain, the SSL connection, are also valid and genuine, so we can see the chain right up to VeriSign there. And what's happening is that additional fields are actually being injected into the HTML, the code, as it loads into the web browser by the Trojan itself. Hence the term a man-in-the-browser attack. So finally what we'll do is bring in the back end of Secure Web Gateway again and take a look at what we saw during the attack. Now, if you recall, we had the policy switch to X-ray mode, so we weren't taking any enforcement action. So first of all, we saw the first stage of the attack again. Next off, we saw a piece of Java, and I'm guessing that's what invoked the Java engine. And again, if we drill into the detail of this, we can see that this time, instead of it being stopped because of exploits of vulnerabilities, it was stopped because of potential interaction with the workstation. This is the behavioral analysis engine at play here. And then further up, we've got a number of URLs all ending in E equals. Now, in this case, the malware writers aren't being particularly subtle. E stands for exploit. During the initial exploration phase, the malware has decided that exploits numbers 1, 4 and 5 are the most likely to be successful on this workstation, and they're the exploits that have been fired at the workstation. Again, if we drill into the details on those, we can see that they've been stopped, or would have been stopped, because of interaction with the workstation, in this case file system, registry and other similar activities. So the conclusion here is that traditional security products, and in particular signature-based antivirus, may not be enough to protect you against these everyday attacks being launched from legitimate websites. Thank you very much.